The relationship between the United States and Iran is one of the most complex and historically layered rivalries in modern international politics. To fully understand the tensions that exist today, it is necessary to examine the events and decisions that shape the political landscape of the Middle East over the past 70 years. The rivalry between these two nations did not begin suddenly. Rather, it developed gradually through a series of political crises, ideological disagreements, and strategic conflicts. During the early 20th century, Iran was a country struggling to maintain its independence while powerful global empires competed for influence in the region. Britain and Russia had long sought to control Iran's resources and political direction. However, the geopolitical situation changed significantly after World War II when the United States began expanding its influence in the Middle East. In the early 1950s, Iran was led by Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, a nationalist leader who sought to strengthen Iran's independence and reduce foreign control over the country's resources. One of Mossadegh's most controversial decisions was the nationalization of Iran's oil industry. At that time, much of Iran's oil production was controlled by British companies, and Mossadegh argued that the profits from these resources should belong to the Iranian people. The nationalization of oil caused a major international dispute. Britain strongly opposed the decision and sought support from the United States. In 1953, a covert operation organized by American and British intelligence agencies led to the removal of Mossadegh from power. The Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was strengthened as the ruler of the country, and he maintained close ties with Western governments. For many years after this event, Iran and the United States enjoyed a strong alliance. The Shah modernized Iran's economy and military with the help of American support. Western companies invested heavily in Iranian oil and infrastructure, and Iran became an important strategic partner for Washington in the Cold War. However, this period of cooperation also produced growing resentment among many Iranians. Critics argued that the Shah's government was authoritarian and heavily dependent on foreign support. Political opposition movements gradually grew stronger during the 1960s and 1970s. Religious leaders, intellectuals, and students began organizing protests against the government. One of the most influential figures in the opposition movement was Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini criticized the Shah for adopting Western cultural and political models that he believed threatened Iran's Islamic identity. Although Khomeini was forced into exile for many years, his speeches and writings continued to inspire supporters inside Iran. By the late 1970s, economic problems and widespread dissatisfaction had weakened the Shah's rule. Large demonstrations took place across Iranian cities, and the government struggled to maintain control. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution finally succeeded in overthrowing the monarchy. The Shah left the country, and Khomeini returned from exile to establish a new Islamic republic. The revolution dramatically transformed Iran's relationship with the United States. The new leadership viewed American influence as a symbol of foreign domination and political interference. Anti-American sentiment became a central element of the revolutionary ideology. Later, in 1979, a group of Iranian students seized the United States Embassy in Tehran. They accused the American government of supporting the former Shah and interfering in Iran's internal affairs. The students took dozens of American diplomats hostage and held them for 444 days. The hostage crisis shocked the world and deeply damaged relations between the two countries. For the United States, the embassy takeover was seen as a direct attack on international diplomatic norms. The crisis dominated American politics and created enormous pressure on the government to respond. Diplomatic negotiations eventually led to the release of the hostages in 1981, but the damage to relations was long-lasting. Throughout the 1980s, tensions remained high. During the Iran-Iraq War, which lasted from 1980 to 1988, the United States provided indirect support to Iraq. Iran viewed this as further evidence that Washington was determined to weaken the Islamic Republic. In the decades that followed, disagreements continued over several issues. One of the most significant disputes has been Iran's nuclear program. Iranian leaders insist that their nuclear activities are intended for peaceful purposes such as energy production and medical research. However, the United States and several other countries have expressed concern that the program could potentially be used to develop nuclear weapons. These concerns led to the introduction of economic sanctions against Iran. Sanctions are restrictions designed to limit a country's economic activity and pressure its government to change policies. Over time, these sanctions affected Iran's banking system, oil exports, and international trade. Iran responded by strengthening its domestic industries and seeking economic partnerships with other countries. At the same time, political rhetoric between Tehran and Washington remained hostile. Another factor contributing to the rivalry is the broader geopolitical competition in the Middle East. Iran has developed close relationships with several political and military groups across the region. The United States and its allies often view these groups as destabilizing forces. Meanwhile, Iran argues that its regional alliances are necessary to defend its national interests and counter foreign pressure. This disagreement over regional influence has led to a series of indirect confrontations in countries such as Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. The relationship between the United States and Israel has also influenced the situation. Israel is one of Washington's closest allies, and Israeli leaders have frequently warned about the dangers they associate with Iran's military capabilities. Because of this alliance, tensions involving Israel often affect the broader relationship between the United States and Iran. In recent years, the geopolitical environment has become even more complicated. Technological developments such as cyber warfare, advanced missile systems, and unmanned drones have introduced new dimensions to international conflict. Governments now compete not only through traditional military power but also through intelligence operations and digital strategies. Despite these tensions, there have also been moments when diplomacy appeared possible. Negotiations between Iran and several world powers led to the creation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, often called the Iran Nuclear Deal. This agreement aimed to limit Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for relief from certain economic sanctions. For a time, the agreement helped reduce tensions and open the door for greater international cooperation. However, political disagreements eventually caused the arrangement to collapse, leading to renewed uncertainty about the future of nuclear negotiations. Today, the relationship between the United States and Iran remains one of cautious hostility. Both countries possess significant military capabilities, and their actions influence the security environment of the entire Middle East. Analysts continue to debate whether the rivalry will eventually lead to confrontation or whether diplomatic solutions can stabilize the situation. Understanding the historical roots of this conflict is essential for interpreting current events. The tensions that exist today are not the result of a single decision or crisis, but rather the outcome of decades of political struggle, ideological competition, and strategic calculation. As global politics continue to evolve, the relationship between Washington and Tehran will remain a critical factor shaping the future of international security. The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East has long been shaped by rivalries, alliances, ideological struggles, and strategic interests. Among the most significant rivalries influencing regional politics today is the relationship between Iran and Israel. Although these two nations do not share a direct border, their political and strategic competition has had far-reaching consequences for the entire region. The involvement of the United States as a close ally of Israel further complicates the situation and influences the balance of power across the Middle East. To understand the modern tension between Israel and Iran, it is important to look at the historical background of their relationship. Before the Iranian Revolution of 1979, Iran and Israel did not consider each other enemies. In fact, during the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran maintained relatively cooperative relations with Israel. Although the relationship was not always public due to political sensitivities in the region, the two countries shared intelligence cooperation and certain economic connections. At that time, Iran was aligned with Western countries and had a strategic partnership with the United States. Israel, which was also closely allied with Washington, viewed Iran as an important regional partner that could help counterbalance Arab nationalist movements and other political forces that threatened Israeli security. As a result, the relationship between Tehran and Tel Aviv during the Shah's era was relatively stable. However, the Iranian Revolution of 1979 completely transformed Iran's political ideology and foreign policy. The new Islamic Republic, led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, adopted a worldview that strongly opposed Western influence and criticized Israel's policies in the region. The revolutionary leadership framed Israel as a symbol of foreign intervention and injury. From that point forward, the relationship between Iran and Israel became openly hostile. Iranian leaders frequently criticized Israeli policies, particularly regarding the Palestinian issue. Iran began supporting political and militant groups that opposed Israeli influence. Israel, in turn, viewed Iran as a major security threat due to its regional alliances and growing military capabilities. The rivalry intensified further in the decades that followed. One of the most significant areas of concern for Israel has been Iran's missile development and nuclear program. Israeli officials have repeatedly warned that Iran's technological advancements could pose a serious risk to Israel's national security if they were used for military purposes. Iran has consistently stated that its nuclear program is intended for peaceful uses such as energy production and scientific research. However, many Western governments remain skeptical and argue that the program could potentially be adapted to produce nuclear weapons. This concern has led to international negotiations, sanctions, and diplomatic efforts aimed at limiting Iran's nuclear capabilities. Israel has taken a particularly strong stance on this issue. Israeli leaders have often declared that they will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons under any circumstances. Over the years, numerous intelligence operations and cyber activities have reportedly targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure. These operations are widely believed to have slowed certain aspects of Iran's nuclear development, although the full details remain classified. Another major dimension of the Iran-Israel rivalry involves regional influence. The Middle East is home to numerous political movements, religious factions, and military alliances. Iran has developed relationships with several groups across the region that share its political outlook or strategic interests. These alliances allow Iran to extend its influence beyond its own borders. From Israel's perspective, these networks represent a serious challenge to regional stability. Israeli leaders argue that Iran's support for these groups allows Tehran to exert pressure on Israel from multiple directions. As a result, Israel has invested heavily in advanced defense systems and intelligence capabilities designed to monitor and counter potential threats. The United States plays a crucial role in this geopolitical equation. Washington has long been Israel's closest ally, providing military assistance, diplomatic support, and strategic cooperation. American policymakers often view Israel as a key partner in maintaining stability and protecting Western interests in the Middle East. Because of this alliance, tensions involving Israel and Iran frequently involve the United States as well. American officials have expressed concerns about Iran's missile development, regional alliances, and nuclear activities. In response, the United States has implemented various economic sanctions and diplomatic measures intended to pressure Iran into changing certain policies. Economic sanctions have had a significant impact on Iran's economy. Restrictions on oil exports, financial transactions, and international trade have created economic challenges for the country. The Iranian government has responded by attempting to strengthen domestic industries and expand partnerships with other nations willing to conduct trade despite sanctions. Meanwhile, Israel has focused on maintaining a strong military deterrent. The Israeli Defense Forces are widely regarded as one of the most technologically advanced militaries in the region. Israel has developed sophisticated air defense systems, intelligence networks, and cyber capabilities that allow it to monitor regional threats and respond quickly if necessary. Another important factor shaping the balance of power is the presence of international military forces in the region. The United States maintains several military bases in Middle Eastern countries and frequently deploys naval forces to nearby waters. These deployments are intended to protect strategic shipping routes, support allied governments, and deter potential aggression. The Persian Gulf and surrounding waterways are particularly important from a strategic perspective. A large portion of the world's oil supply travels through this region. Any disruption to these shipping routes could have major economic consequences for global markets. As a result, many governments closely monitor developments in the Middle East. International organizations, diplomatic institutions, and regional leaders often call for restraint and dialogue whenever tensions appear to rise. The fear of a large-scale conflict encourages many countries to seek diplomatic solutions rather than military confrontation. However, diplomacy in the Middle East is often complicated by competing interests and deep historical grievances. Different nations pursue their own security goals, economic ambitions, and political visions for the region. These competing priorities make it difficult to reach agreements that satisfy all parties involved. Despite these challenges, there have been occasional attempts to reduce tensions through negotiation. Multilateral talks involving Iran and several world powers have sometimes produced agreements designed to limit certain military activities or encourage transparency. While these efforts have not always been successful, they demonstrate that diplomacy remains an important tool in managing international conflict. The future of the Iran-Israel rivalry will depend on many factors, including political leadership, economic conditions, and global power dynamics. Technological developments such as cyber warfare, advanced missiles, and unmanned aerial vehicles are also likely to influence the strategic balance in the years ahead. Understanding the relationship between Israel and Iran is essential for analyzing broader Middle Eastern politics. Their rivalry influences the decisions of neighboring countries, shapes international alliances, and affects the strategic calculations of major global powers. For analysts and policymakers, the challenge lies in preventing competition from escalating into direct confrontation. Maintaining stability in such a complex region requires careful diplomacy, strategic patience, and cooperation among multiple nations. As we continue this series of lectures, the next discussion will explore the strategic importance of the Middle East's geography, energy resources, and shipping routes, and how these factors influence the policies of global powers. The Middle East has long held a unique position in global geopolitics due to its vast energy resources, critical geographic location, and the complex interplay of regional and international actors. The strategic importance of this region extends far beyond its borders, influencing global economic stability, international security policies, and diplomatic relations among major powers. The Middle East occupies a central location connecting three continents: Asia, Europe, and Africa. This positioning has historically made it a crossroads for trade, migration, and cultural exchange. The region includes several vital maritime passages, such as the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Each of these waterways plays a pivotal role in the transportation of energy resources and global commerce. The Strait of Hormuz alone is one of the most strategically important choke points in the world. It is a narrow waterway that connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Approximately 20% of the world's petroleum passes through this strait, making it a critical artery for global energy supplies. Any disruption to shipping in this area could cause substantial fluctuations in international oil prices and create economic instability worldwide. The Suez Canal in Egypt serves as another major strategic corridor, linking the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea. Control and security of the Suez Canal have historically been a major concern for global powers due to its significance in trade between Europe and Asia. Similarly, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, located between Yemen and Djibouti, provides access to the Red Sea and is a key route for the transportation of crude oil and other commodities. One of the most prominent factors contributing to the Middle East's strategic importance is its enormous reserves of oil and natural gas. Countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates hold a substantial portion of the world's proven oil reserves. These resources provide not only significant economic leverage but also geopolitical influence. For decades, oil has been a primary driver of international relations in the region. Nations dependent on energy imports are acutely aware of the need to maintain stability in Middle Eastern countries. Fluctuations in production, disruptions caused by conflict, or embargoes can have ripple effects on global markets, influencing energy prices, investment decisions, and international diplomacy. In addition to oil, the Middle East contains significant natural gas reserves, particularly in Iran and Qatar. Gas is increasingly important as global energy consumption shifts toward cleaner fuels, and as countries seek to diversify their energy sources. The export of liquefied natural gas, LNG, from Middle Eastern nations has become a major component of their economic and political strategy. The geographic and resource-rich characteristics of the Middle East have made it a focal point for both regional and international military presence. The United States, for example, maintains several military bases in countries such as Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait. These installations provide rapid deployment capabilities, surveillance, and operational readiness for potential conflicts in the region. American aircraft carriers and